Well, hello, folks. Just wanted to welcome you. I know people will be coming in over the next few minutes. I wanted to start off by welcoming everybody. I am Ron Mazurski. I'm the founder of NYPAY and a board member of NYPAY. I'm also the managing director of Pagility Advisors during my free time, or I guess that's most of my time. And each month, NYPAY and its events committee hosts a panel of speakers on various topics. Those topics are important to banking, to payments, and to fintechs. Today, we're happy to bring you a very special event, and we call it Hot Topics plus Networking. And this is the first time we're presenting multiple topics at the same time that our members have chosen based upon a market research survey that we sent out and asked what people preferred to hear about. The three speakers you're going to end up hearing from today, there are experts in their respective fields. The speakers, their companies, and the topics are as follows. We have Scott Lenoir, who is the chairman of Evolve Bank. He's going to be speaking on banking as a service, enabling smaller banks and fintechs to compete. We have Mark Hochstein, and Mark is the executive editor of Coindesk. He is the second speaker, and he'll be covering the topic of the evolving world of cryptocurrencies. And Joanna Pugh is the managing director of North America as Mambu, and if you couldn't notice that, she's the one waving her hands. And she's our final speaker this evening, and she'll be talking about the future of core platforms. Now, today's agenda will cover the following. We're going to be starting off with speaker one, who will be talking about banking as a service, and that'll be a 15-minute session. The second will be a networking session, the first networking session of the evening. That's also for 15 minutes. We'll follow that by the second speaker, who will be talking about cryptocurrencies. That'll be for 15 minutes, followed by the second networking session, also for 15 minutes. And then we'll have speaker number three, who will be talking about core platforms. That will be 15 minutes, followed by a Q&A session. And that Q&A session is going to be covering all three topics. What I want to do is just remind everybody, or tell everybody, that when you want to put in your questions, and I'll suggest through the process as we hear each speaker, you'll have questions coming up. Please enter those in the chat function, and my colleague will be picking those questions up and be able to refer those questions to the appropriate people. I'd like to introduce you now to my colleague on the NYPAY Events Committee, and he is coordinated today's event, and he's going to lead us through the sessions coming up. His name is Chris D'Antuono. Chris, what's your name? Sorry.
It's actually Chris D'Antuono. The apostrophe kind of throws everything off.
There you go. I practiced it too.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, we'll work on that one. But yeah, thanks for everyone for attending today, and definitely appreciate the speakers getting on to join us at the thought leader sessions. I think we'll use this time to have our speakers give an introduction about themselves before we kick into the sessions. And as Ron mentioned, please feel free to add questions into the queue, and I'll help coordinate those and get the conversation moving along the way. So you don't have to hold them till later. Just get them in, and we're looking to have everyone interact as we have the sessions here and get to the networking event where we can speak on maybe what was just spoken on, or maybe something else that everyone has top of mind. So let's kick it off with our first speaker for their introduction. Scott, if you don't mind giving a background about yourself.
One second, before we go on to that, I'm sorry, but I actually dropped the ball on something. I was supposed to refer for a second over to Bill and Nikki to ask if there are any specific instructions. And I think Nikki had mentioned something about asking people to turn off their cameras or something, and something else. So Bill or Nikki?
Yeah, for bandwidth, we ask that you turn off your cameras. It'll make it better for everybody. And of course, mute yourself. And then once we go into networking, we're assigning people to rooms manually. It'll take 2 or 3 minutes to assign you to your room. So just wait while we take care of that, and you'll be in a room to network with your colleagues. That's it.
Thank you. Back now to you, Chris. Sorry.
Yep. Yeah, no worries at all. Glad we covered that. So Scott, if you don't mind for the group here, just give a background about yourself, and yeah, we'll kick it over to the next speaker.
Yep. Good afternoon, everyone. Scott Lenore, founder and chairman of Evolve Bank and Trust. Evolve's based in Memphis. We started the bank in 2005, and I'll go a little bit deeper into some of that when I talk a little bit more here in just a minute. But a long financial services background in the financial services and banking.
Thanks, Scott. Yeah, we'll get into definitely more detail on that in our first session. Mark, over to you, if you don't mind, just a brief background.
Oh, hi, everyone. My name is Mark Hochstein. I'm executive editor at Coindesk. Coindesk is the leading publication covering cryptocurrency, blockchain, and the ongoing digital transformation of money in the 21st century. I've been a journalist, financial journalist, business journalist my whole career. Spent most of my career at American Banker, which I'm sure many of you have heard of. Got the crypto bug a while back, became fascinated with it, and joined Coindesk about 4 years ago. And looking forward to going down that rabbit hole with everyone tonight.
Thanks, Mark. And Joanna?
Hey, Joanna coming to you from Dallas, Texas. Super keen to be here with my cohorts here, Scott. He and I share probably a love of dry rub ribs, one of my favorite things in Memphis. Been up there for many, many years, one of my favorite places. And share with my friend at Coindesk a little bit of Doja. Rode that ride for a little bit as well. So super keen to be here with all of you guys. I'm a fintech gal through and through. So started my career straight out of university, rocked straight into startup businesses, all the way into some of the largest financial technology companies in the world. And really keen to talk to you guys today about where we see the evolution of core coming. So super keen to be here with you guys. And thank you for the introduction, Chris. Yeah,
sure thing. Like I said, it's a pleasure to have all three of you on speaking to all of that. And so I guess let's waste no time here, and we'll start with our first session, bringing in Scott to speak on banking as a service and transforming the traditional banks and helping out in fintechs. Scott, keys are over to you.
Great, thanks, Chris, and thanks to everyone at NYPAY for having me, as well as everyone on the call. Appreciate your time and spending time out of your busy schedules to listen to all the speakers today. As I mentioned, maybe a little bit of background about Evolve and what we do. We started out originally as a traditional bank. We still have that business today. Traditional banking, mortgage, lending, quite a large trust and custody business. As a bank, from our very beginning, we've been very interested in the fee side of our business, really focused on the fee income side, and that's probably a lot driven by myself. One of the divisions that we're talking about today is what we call open banking. This is where I spend a lot of my time, and really some background in terms of how we got there. Probably about 4 years ago, I was watching my 3 college-age children, how they interact with financial services. I'd watch them do different apps and things such as that, and how they interacted. And I thought it was interesting that from their standpoint, they were more what I would call app-driven than they were bank-driven. They found a certain app that they really loved, and that's what they engaged with. They've never stepped in foot inside of a bank branch, even today. My own children don't come inside the bank branch, but that really got us thinking about the whole fintech space and how it worked. Along the way, I met one of our current clients today who was starting out his journey as a BaaS or a SaaS, and approached us about being a bank for them and all the things that we do with them. So today we are both an acquiring bank and an issuing bank. with Visa and MasterCard, principal members of both. And really what we do is we have what we call solutions. And solutions for us are things such as ACH, FBO accounts, virtual accounts, wire, card issuing, push to card. We package those all up as solutions. So really what we've done is we've created the journey of building what we would call a technology layer. Most of that is API driven that we've put on top of our banking core and offering those solutions out to the fintech ecosystem. So fintech in general, for me, one of the great things that I get to see are all the neat things that these platforms are doing. Very cool companies that I get to see. And as a company, we really love the way they are approaching the financial services. You know, a lot of people say they're disruptors. I don't think that's a bad thing. I think of them as they're really trying to take a lot of friction out of the banking system. And what I mean by that is there a quicker way to open up a bank account? Is there a faster way to move money? Is there a quicker way to get a loan? Is there a quicker way to issue a card? And so what I've really appreciated is the fact that these platforms are really pushing the frictionless piece out of it. I think what's also interesting from our perspective is how many people that's bringing back into the banking or the financial industry. And so in really what I would say in a more efficient way and probably in a more affordable way. So again, we get to see a lot of cool companies and a lot of cool technology. I'll talk a little bit more about that as we go along. So our approach to the whole fintech ecosystem, let me kind of give you an overview of what that looks like. But I want to be clear from our standpoint, we do not go direct to consumer. And what I mean by that is we don't push our digital banking out to our existing customers. We work with what we call aggregators. In a lot of terms, that would be like a BaaS or a SaaS. And then we work with a lot of platforms going direct. You know, for being honest, you know, historically, banks typically have not done a very good job of creating that customer interface, that customer experience. And that's where I think a lot of the fintechs have done a good job of creating that experience. Most banks like us rely on our core provider to provide that app. And to be honest with you, it's really quite lacking. So I think that's where a lot of these fintechs have really done a great job of the user experience and acquiring the customer. So again, for us, we work with what we call aggregators. They plug into our technology layer, and then behind them, they bring us clients behind them, kind of a one-to-many relationship. The platforms that we deal with are of great variety. It would be B2B, B2C, P2P. Some of our platforms are involved in crypto or stable coin. So it's very, very cool for us in the variety of different platforms that we see using our solutions in a variety of ways. So what I thought about today was really giving you a perspective. If you're a fintech platform or a BaaS, how do you interact with banks? What should you be thinking about? And then if you're a bank, I'm going to maybe give you a perspective of if you're thinking about getting into this business, some things you should think about if you're on the banking side. But regardless of either one of those solutions first, let me just kind of tell you from our standpoint, how we bring on clients. So if you're a fintech, you probably need to understand our model. If you're a bank, what I would consider best practice in terms of bringing on these different parties that you're thinking about doing business with. So at the very beginning of our process, we do quite a bit of what we would call pre-qualification and application. We provide to our customers a quite lengthy list of things that we need. That would be stuff around financials. That would be stuff around compliance, BSA, IT, website, app, customer service. And so what we do is we give our prospects a list of things that we need, and our different groups within our organization do a deep dive on those different components. From that, we create what we call a risk score based upon those different attributes. and what solutions they're going to use with us. Are they going to issue a credit card, a debit card, ACH, whatever those different solutions might be. So we spend a lot of time at the beginning working on understanding the client, their flow of funds, their use case. And I think that's important if you're a bank to make sure you get that done, because from a bank's perspective, these folks, these fintechs are an extension of your bank. So just know that there's an extensive due diligence piece that we look at and that we think about. Just let you know that. And then I think from if you're a BaaS or a SaaS or direct platform, when you're approaching a bank, what should you be thinking about from the bank's perspective? And I think one thing when you're initially talking to the bank, that it's important for you to understand that the bank owns all the risk. So I think when you're approaching a bank and you understand that concept, and you talk to the bank in a way of, here's what we're doing about KYC, here's what we're doing about compliance, here's what we're doing about disclosures. I think having that understanding that the bank is taking on the risk. Obviously, a lot of our clients have a variety of different different banks that they do business with. But if you cause the bank a problem, it's really a big issue for the bank. And so I think understanding that is a big piece. I think you need to communicate to the bank about your management team and how seasoned they are. I think you need to think about who, one of the things we ask for as part of our due diligence is the cap table for your investment. I think that's one of the things we think about a lot, are who the investors are in your organization and what it looks like from a cash flow standpoint. Can you sustain and be in business 2 or 3 years from now? I think those are things we think about. I think as we've learned along the way, one of our pain points is the whole customer service piece, especially if you're issuing a card in the field. You need to be thinking about how you're going to handle customer service. I think to say to a bank that every customer service call is going to be answered by a bot is not a good answer. Because I think even in this fintech world, end users want to talk to somebody eventually. So where we have the most pain points, I think sometimes, is understanding the whole customer service piece. To that end, we created our own a digital customer service team to help our fintech partners with customer service. And some of our clients do a good job of customer service, but when there's a problem with the card, there's fraud with the card, this is where you have the potential for the most complaints and most issues. So I think explaining to the bank, how are you handling KYC? How are you handling BSA? How do you plan on handling customer service? I think all those things are important. And so that's if you're a fintech approaching a bank, I really would say put yourself in their seat and have them understand how you're going to handle all these things. So if you're a bank and you're thinking about getting in this space, what would I say to you? Number one, pick good partners. As I mentioned earlier, the SaaSes, the BaaSes, the fintechs are an extension of you. They are doing your BSA, your customer service. They're representing you. And so if there's a problem, again, the bank's going to own it. I think if you're a bank, that you really need to spend some time really learning the space, understanding the space. The fintechs speak in a different language, and that was always a challenge at the beginning. How are they saying certain things? How do they explain certain things? Because they're not going to talk in banking language. They're going to talk in technology language. And so that's a challenge. I think if you're going to be in this space, you've got to be committed to it. I just don't think that you can dip a toe into it and say we're thinking about doing it. So I would say you just got to jump in. I think the other thing that you have to be thinking about is the fintechs really come with some great ideas. You've got to be open to those ideas and new ways of thinking. You will spend a lot of money on technology. You will spend a lot of money on tools. and some of your existing tools may not be able to handle the amount of volume of transactions that you're going to see. And so I really think you got to think about the technology piece. And when you have that technology, obviously you have to love it, care for it, feed it, and continue to grow with it. Obviously, I think you have to get board and senior management buy-in. We have actually created a separate committee of our board related to our open banking, what we call our Open Banking Oversight Committee. And then along the way, we have a number of internal meetings talking about the business as well. So I think it's obvious that you have to get board and the board and senior management to buy into it. Obviously, every bank has a regulator. I would go talk to your regulator about it as well. I think one of the things that we've tried to do with our regulators is communicate. When we're thinking about new solutions, when we're thinking about new ideas, we did a press release with MasterCard and settling in stablecoin. We talked to our regulator ahead of time about that. So I think you have to think about that. And then I think from an ongoing standpoint, you've really got to monitor your clients, right? You have to oversee them. We do an annual review of every one of our partners, and that review includes all the things I just talked about: financial, compliance, BSA, IT, but there's ongoing monitoring that you have to do. The other thing that we did that I think has been very helpful as well is that we've created inside of our bank a separate group of people to work in this space. And what I mean by that is our bank operations and bank compliance is overseeing all of the bank, but we've created compliance, account management, implementation, customer service, IT. It's kind of a subset of our bank. That's good because, again, the language that the fintechs and these SaaSes uses is different than traditional banking business. So it's not like they can call up and talk to a traditional banking person because there's going to be a big disconnect there. So we spent a lot of time building out our team within our bank, and it's really its own living, breathing unit. So that's the high end of it. And I guess, Chris, I can stop there and answer questions. And if there's any questions on the chat, go from there.
Great, thanks a lot, Scott. Obviously, pretty detailed for a lot of our listeners, and I think numerous information just based off the experience that you guys had, and obviously one of the pioneers in this space, and having early adopters, you're able to see the challenges faced on earlier on. So appreciate that. Again, anyone who has questions, feel free to enter them into the chat section. I think there we'll be able to address the Q&A at the end of the sessions. So I think now we have time to break to a networking opportunity. I believe Bill from our side will be handling that. So not sure how many rooms are going to get, but I think we're going to be separating out into about a 10 to 15 minute session. Then we'll come back to hear Mark and the landscape of crypto.
Great. We've got 7 rooms. So give us 2 or 3 minutes. We're going to assign everybody to a room and you'll be able to chat.
And I'm just going to add one thing, which is everybody, I guess, when you go into the networking rooms, you can put your cameras and unmute so that we can see each other and talk to each other. And one other thing, which is the chat button on the bottom of your Zoom will be where you enter those questions. I see one of them has already been sent in by somebody. And again, we'll get to those questions in a group session towards the end.
How long is the networking? Is it like 5 minutes?
We had planned for 10 to 15 minutes for
Okay,
each of the networking, 2 networking sessions.
thank you.
Can't wait. Sounds exciting, Ron.
I assume we'll get a
Usually it
countdown.
is- And it's usually quicker to get into the sessions. There must be some delay in working this out.
We're doing it
Everyone-
manually, Ron.
Should keep an eye on the countdown so you don't just get thrown out at the end without getting a chance to say goodbye.
Agreed, Deb. Agreed. Absolutely.
I still have, I'm still feeling the wrath of that fintech meetup of just the black screen of getting to that next session. Yeah.
The brutal cutoff.
That
I would stop talking at 15 seconds and we just stare at each other for 15 seconds. It was quite the discipline.
Oh, no.
Yeah, but by the last session, I was pretty good. I actually said, okay, we're going to cut off in 5 seconds. Go.
All right. Let's see
I'm
again.
joining room 3.
Okay.
At least we get the countdown there. So you have the 60-second close window, and hopefully everyone enjoyed their sessions. I know, we did for sure, with the breakout group 3 for what we had. So let's keep it on time here. So we're going to kick it over to speaker 2, and that's Mark from Coindesk. He's going to speak on all things crypto, which we have no idea where that could go, but let's have him take the reins. Mark, over to you.
All right, thanks, Chris. I'm going to share my screen, and let me just make sure. Oh, I'm going to present. So hold on. Let me just make sure you guys can see it. Oh wait. You can see. I'm so sorry.
We're seeing your desktop.
Yeah, you're seeing my desktop because I have like multiple monitors. Hold on, let me see what happens if I'm going to move my experiencing technical difficulties, but I'll, okay, here we go. Here we go. Oh, wait. Oh, this is, oh, okay, I see what the problem is. All right, here we go. Okay, all right, now I go to this and then I present. All right, you guys can see Clint Eastwood?
Hey, loving this already, Mark. This is
Okay.
awesome.
Okay, all right.
It makes me think of you right away.
Yeah, so crypto is the Wild West. It's a fascinating field that it's just a lot of like bleeding edge innovation. Also a lot of unsavory characters. So it's both. So you get it's basically. I mean, there's a lot of analogies you can make. You could compare it to the wildcat banks of the 1830s. You could compare it to the Wild West. Just it's truly unfettered, and that has its pluses and minuses. I mentioned earlier during the introductions, I covered just a little bit about me. I covered I've covered business and financial services in particular for a very long time. I became absolutely obsessed with Bitcoin almost a decade ago. And started paying attention to it when most of my colleagues just thought it was bullshit. Excuse my language. Had a wonderful time at American Banker, but when the opportunity presented itself to cover crypto full time, I leapt at it. It's very weird. I will say this. I mean, it is like going from Kansas to Oz. Like just in terms of if you want to think of a statistical distribution, the people like, banking, and I mean this in the best way, but, the people you meet in banking are, most of them are just sort of, they're just sort of like, middle of the bell curve, they're out, people are average, they're just, good, solid, I'm not talking about Wall Street type A personalities, community bankers, solid American, pillars of the community. Everyone's pretty normal. And crypto, it's like a barbell distribution where you have like the most brilliant, amazing, idealistic, visionary people you'll ever meet, and you have the worst scammers and lowlifes you'll ever meet. And there's very little in between. So it's very weird. It takes a lot of adjusting. I love it, but it is strange. So crypto is going through a boom. It is a boom bust cycle. I mean, I used to cover mortgages and I thought that was a boom bust business, but crypto is just off the charts. But it's currently going through we thought we were entering a bear market a few weeks ago, but we seem to have bounced back. But if you look at just like the results of Coinbase is a major crypto exchange here in the US. They went public on the NASDAQ this year, which was kind of a watershed event for our industry. I mean, just look at these numbers. Look at the trend lines for their trading volume. It's insane. And then if you just look, the greatest bellwether for this industry is just the price of Bitcoin. I mean, that's basically kind of the benchmark for the thousands of other coins. And yeah, I mean, we hit an all-time high this year. Came down pretty hard, but we've bounced right back. So this is the number that everyone in my space obsesses about from day to day. So one thing that's important to know is that, I mean, cryptos are not interchangeable. They all have different value propositions and different risks. And there was a regulator who spoke yesterday, who I will not name, but made some what I thought were relatively ignorant comments. He was saying, "Oh, well, anyone can just create their own version of Bitcoin. I can create my own Bitcoin. You can create your own Bitcoin. It's not like he sort of spoke about it like they're all the same, and there's just this unlimited supply. But there's different, there's reasons why the market differentiates between these different assets and these different types of digital assets. Digital assets, by the way, is now the sort of respectable term for this sector, and it sounds a little bit more institution friendly than digital assets, than cryptocurrency, but most people say cryptocurrency. So for example, let's take Bitcoin. So Bitcoin's been around the longest. It started in 2009. Again, all of these cryptocurrencies, the software is open source. So you have people around the world, anyone can contribute, anyone can review the code, anyone can contribute the code. But because Bitcoin's been around so long, you've had various white hat and black hat hackers trying to attack the network, and every time it gets attacked, or someone attempts to do an attack, the code is patched, or vulnerability is found, the code is patched, and so it just keeps, everything that it just grows stronger and stronger with time. The one thing that I think is important, when people, again, this gentleman, influential gentleman said yesterday, "Oh, anyone create their own Bitcoin." I mean, you can call it Bitcoin if you want, but the Bitcoin network has the most computing power devoted to securing the network, what they call hash rate, through this process known as mining. Most people, I'm guessing, have at least heard of Bitcoin mining. But you have these computers around the world that are solving math problems very quickly. The one that solves it first is number one, gets like the new Bitcoin that's released into the system every 10 minutes. And basically it's part of the process of recording batches of transactions into the public ledger. So, I mean, basically Bitcoin has the most network effect, and it has, all that electricity that you hear about with Bitcoin, I mean, it's not just, it's not just a fiendish plot to boil the oceans. That amount of energy makes it difficult to attack the network. It makes it difficult to try to, rewrite transactions. And so it secures the ledger. And so that there is a purpose to this, seemingly make work computation. Bitcoin is starting to attract institutional investment. Mass Mutual announced they were making a significant investment in it. I think it was late last year. You have like big hedge fund people like Paul Tudor Jones, Ray Dalio have been dabbling in it. At the same time, it is this sort of anarchic thing. There's no leader, right? Satoshi Nakamoto, you've probably heard some of the stories, was the pseudonymous creator of Bitcoin, disappeared about 10 years ago. No one knows who he is or who they are or who she is. I don't think anyone will know with certainty. That's a whole other rabbit hole we could go down. So, so what is the value proposition? I mean, to be fair, I mean, I would say that like in reality, like most of people who are using Bitcoin these days, there's a lot of speculation. There's a lot of trading. So I'd be lying if I was saying that that's not what a lot of people are doing. But the investment thesis for those who have sort of seriously pursued it is that it's a store of value akin to digital gold. So a lot of people have probably heard that there will only, there's this supply cap. There will only ever be 21 million Bitcoins created. Oops, sorry. There will only ever be 21 million Bitcoins created. And so, in that sense, it's even better than gold in that sense, in the sense that like, people could still find gold in the ground, but once the last Bitcoin is minted in about 100 years from now or whatever it is, there will be no more. So you have a predictable and fixed supply schedule. I'd be lying if I said that if I deny that there's a lot of illicit activity on the Bitcoin network. There, I'd say that's non-trivial. The reason for that is that again, it is a system that has no central operator, so anyone can use it. It's permissionless. It's totally open. It is financial inclusion in the truest sense. I mean, if you want to, anyone here, you can download the basic Bitcoin core software. Run it on your computer. All you need is an internet connection. You don't have to show ID to get a Bitcoin wallet. Now, if you want to go get an account at a Bitcoin exchange, they are going to do some KYC on you, and it's and if it's regulated here in the U.S., it could be more stringent than what you would have to get to, get certain other financial products, just because because of just all the scrutiny of Bitcoin. But in terms of just investment proposition, the idea is, the Fed's printing money. They've just flooded all this, flooded M2 during the pandemic, and now we've got stimulus money coming. And it's a bulwark against inflation. I'm not saying I agree with that. I'm not saying I disagree with that, but that is the theory, that it's a store of value. Early on, Bitcoin was touted as a payments system, and it's not great for that. We'll talk about that in a second. Also, the other thing is like anonymity. Now, Bitcoin is not truly anonymous. I mean, again, anyone can download a wallet. Anyone, you can create as many Bitcoin addresses as you want. The public ledger does not say who is behind the Bitcoin addresses, but it is possible to trace Bitcoin transactions on the public ledger. There is a cottage industry of compliance vendors that do just that. Chainalysis, Elliptic. They basically look at the public data, and they do sort of cluster analysis, and they can figure out, they help law enforcement track down the bad actors who are using this network. So it's not truly anonymous. It's pseudonymous. It's not truly anonymous. The downsides. Number one, I don't need to tell you this, but Bitcoin is volatile. I mean, I showed you this chart earlier that showed the uptrend, but in just one day it can just bounce around. So from minute to minute, it's swinging wildly. Again, this is very much like cash in the sense that, or physical valuables. Once it's gone, it's gone. It's controlled by a private key. So if you lose your private key, you are out of luck. There's no one you can call up and say, "Hey, I lost my." It's not like calling up Chase, say, "Hey, I lost my password," and they can get you back in eventually. I mean, this is like, if you lose your private key, you have lost access to it. And if someone else takes your private key, they can take your funds. So hence the saying, "Not your keys, not your coins." Transfers can't be reversed. Early on, this was pitched to merchants as who had a lot of chargebacks, as like, oh, well, there's no chargebacks. But again, from the sender's point of view, if you send it to the wrong address, too bad. Reputational risk is, it is what it is. I mean, again, a lot of bad actors use this. They use this for ransomware. It's used on the dark web. And similarly, in that same bucket, there's a lot of debate about the energy usage of the Bitcoin network. And so, from the point of view of investors and companies that for whom ESG is a concern, that's going to be an issue. We could litigate forever the whole question of whether Bitcoin is "quote unquote" wasteful or an environmental disaster. But that perception is out there. So if you're going to deal, if you're, as an institution or a company, you're dealing with this, you're going to get that question asked to you, and you have to be prepared to answer it some way. I mentioned it doesn't really work as a payment system. I mean, it's, at least the main Bitcoin blockchain is really good. It's good for large value payments. It's not good for buying a cup of coffee, or it's not always good for buying a cup of coffee. I mean, the fees depend on the amount of traffic on the network and the time it takes to get a transaction settled. It averages 20 minutes, but during peak times it can be an hour or more. I mean, I think I even once waited overnight to get a confirmation. Now, of course, compare that to ACH. ACH used to be 2 to 3 days. I don't know what it is now. It's all a matter of perspective, but if you're buying food in a cafeteria, you don't want to wait, 20 minutes for the person to say, okay, you can take your feet to your table. I should also note there's a thing called layer 2, which is sort of like a kind of a parallel network, the Lightning Network, that is in fact designed for low value, high volume, fast payments for cups of coffee and the like. And then and Lightning is growing. It's still in a sort of an experimental phase, but that could be the long-term solution for that issue. But in the meantime, it's an issue. And then functionality Bitcoin is basically does something very simple. It says, it basically move value from A to B. But there's like more complex kind of things that you can do with blockchains that were developed after the fact, and Bitcoin is not as conducive to that. So, that is where Ethereum comes in. Ethereum is the second largest blockchain, just to give you a sense of, in terms of market value. Bitcoin's market cap is $800 billion right now. For Ethereum, it's $350 billion. Ethereum was specifically designed for more sophisticated things than what Bitcoin can handle, programmable money. So, Ethereum, there is the main token called Ether. That is sort of the native currency of the Ethereum network, but there are lots of other tokens that run on the Ethereum network, like scores, hundreds. I don't know how many there are, but there are lots. During 2017, this is what fueled the initial coin offering boom, which did not end very well for most of those involved. A lot of these ICOs, as the name implies, were in the SEC's view, unregistered security offerings. So a lot of fines have been paid. But it did show that, you can do it did show that you can do crowdfunding in this sort of very frictionless way. Today, there's a few important things going on Ethereum. DeFi is the hot thing one of the hot things right now. DeFi is fascinating. It's really weird. It's very complex, but essentially you got to think of it as like robot banks. These are smart contracts that are basically acting as automated banks. You can lend cryptocurrency to these smart contracts and get a return. You can borrow cryptocurrency from these smart contracts, and it's collateralized. There's no, in terms of the 4 C's of credit, which I'm sure some of you have heard of, the only C that really matters in DeFi right now is collateral. So you have to give them some kind of you have to put some kind of an Ethereum asset into the smart contract, and you can borrow a different type of asset and you pay it back with interest. And I'm oversimplifying it, but there's just a lot of interesting kind of innovative structures that are going on with DeFi. You've probably heard of NFTs. I would describe NFTs again, non-fungible tokens. So if Bitcoin is gold, NFTs are almost like digital diamonds. Every NFT is a token that is just unique from all the other ones, and they can signify, the big use case for that is digital art. Digital art, is, by nature, anyone can look at, a digital image that's on the internet, but if you own the NFT, then it's you can say, or if you control the NFT in your wallet, it's basically like saying, I own this. It took me a while to get to kind of, if anything, it's almost like you have the bragging rights, right? So, and you might wonder well, who cares? But someone did in fact pay $69 million for the NFT of a work of art earlier this year. So there's a whole community around that. And then stable coins, which were mentioned earlier, are also very interesting. There's basically, I mentioned volatility earlier. Stable coins are cryptocurrencies that pretty much hold their value against usually the dollar, sometimes the euro. And the way it works, usually, there's a few different ways that they do this, but the most proven model is they're collateralized. So USDC is the second largest stable coin. It's issued by a company called Circle. And Circle has, for every unit of USDC, Circle has, or is supposed to have, $1 in the bank somewhere. So if you want to go, you can buy USDC on an exchange. You can buy USDC from the issuer, give them real world money, and get this token. You can redeem your USDC for dollars from them off chain. So basically, I mean, some people have compared them to money market funds. I think that's that's probably a decent way to think about it. Or maybe euro dollars back in the day. So stable coins are big business right now, and there's basically two use cases. The proven use case, again, is trading related. If you are a crypto trader and you want to move money between one exchange and another, there are exchanges all around the world. They all have slightly different prices for Bitcoin and so forth. You want to capture an arbitrage opportunity. Stablecoin is a lot faster than a wire. A wire, could take days. And of course, you get whereas stable coins, it's on chain, and the Ethereum blockchain, I think, settles a bit faster than the Bitcoin blockchain. But it's basically, it's like it's just a way to move money quickly between exchanges. But aspirationally, a lot of people are talking about stable coins as sort of new payment rails, and Circle will definitely play that up when you talk to them, and they have partnerships with Visa and MasterCard, among others.
Hey, Mark,
yes, sir.
I'm sorry to interrupt.
I'm running out of time.
You ran out about 5 minutes ago.
Oh, okay, I'm sorry.
That's
All right,
okay. I just want to know if we could wrap it up.
Okay, I'm gonna wrap it up. So basically, I'm happy to answer any questions anyone has during the Q&A. I'm happy to share my slides. My contact info is here. If you want to learn more about crypto, just take a screen grab of this slide here. These are all some really good links if you want to learn more. Sorry I went over, but happy to answer any questions, and looking forward to more networking.
Yeah, thanks a lot, Mark. Obviously, it's a lot to pack into 15 minutes, especially with the ever-changing evolution of new coins and the fluctuation of what's going on, and then also the adoption by companies like Square and whatnot. So obviously, a lot there. So appreciate the work to pack that in as much as you can to 15. So no worries there. Again, to everybody, feel free to add questions into the chat. We'll address that after our last speaker. But for now, we're going to enter networking session number 2. So we'll leave it up to Bill and team to send us into the new rooms, and we'll touch back in about 10 minutes. Welcome back, everybody. We'll wait a couple of seconds here. Get most people back. Hopefully everyone shared some knowledgeable information. I know we did. Again, I got with Joanna again, so we're really getting tight over here with some good information.
I mean, when in Texas, be in Texas, right, Chris?
That's it. Yeah, that's it. Really committed now, for sure. Well, I guess with that said, we're going to kick it off to session 3. Again, after this, we're going to do some Q&A. I know the questions are going into everyone, but we'll have, you know, a 5-minute closer in a couple of minutes here, but we want to give Joanna the full 15. So I'll shut up now and kick it over to Joanna to close us out in session 3.
Perfect. Thank you, guys. Thank y'all so much for letting me join you today. I'm super excited. Chris and Ron asked me to talk a little about the core transformation. So what's been going on from a core platform perspective. And so we'll make this very energized, exciting, and short and to the point, because that's how we gals here in Texas do that. So number 1, you think about core platforms. You think about Gen 1. I think about being somebody who had my Johnny Appleseed card way back in the day, and that's how I saved my money. And, you know, we popped it into this green screen at the bank, and, you know, that's how we transacted banking. And 3 days later, it would show up in my account. Not that I saw anything electronically, but it was on paper, right? So Gen 2, moving forward to the next level, you think about, okay, well, maybe now I can connect this monolithic platform to multiple different components, right? So maybe there's some integration or implementations. It's not the old screen scrape stuff anymore that a bank has to follow along, right? And now maybe I can have some APIs that give me access to be able to push and pull data in and out. It's not all manual processing, right? So we did that back in the early 2000s. And if, and I'm going to date myself here because I did do a lot of green screen scrapes, even as early as like, I don't know, 7-8 years ago. And I hated it because if you think about pulling in data and you think about a platform, how can I access what I need to? How can I be agile as a financial institution? Whether I'm a fintech, whether I'm a bank, whether I am, you know, an institution, a lending institution, an ILC, etc. How can I figure out how data can come in and out, right? So Gen 2 really kind of put a box around it. They said, you know what? We'll put this API layer, and Scott talked about that today. He's put an API layer around a Gen 2 platform, right? So that he could accept fintech type transactions and transactions off the normal general ledger that he had in his book today, right? The third aspect of that is, where have we moved since then, right? So with the onset of cloud, but let me step back before we go to cloud. You're talking to an ASP gal, so application service provider, right? So we put it in a spot and we allowed folks to use it way back in the early 2000s. Now what we're talking about is taking that Gen 1, Gen 2 technology and putting it in a cloud layer and having a cloud wrapper around it, right? So you still have the same set of limitations, but now you can access it a little bit easier. The third stage of that is, and that's where we are at Mambu Americas, we actually are taking the technology and we've built it in the cloud, which means everything is available to you, 100% extensible. So you don't have to wait for a release schedule as a financial institution or a release schedule as a partner, as a fintech, to be able to integrate or do whatever you need to do from a business perspective. It's all there and available to you. And so that's, you know, Gen 1, Gen 2, Gen 3 from a core perspective. Some folks use the F word if you talk about Gen 1, Gen 2. And then you think about the incomers, so the F word, the F word companies, Finastra, FIS, Fiserv, those guys, right? So they've got that technology platform. FIS is invested in a Gen 3 and they're working towards that. But how do you deal with lending and deposits in one particular sector, right? That's the key question. Then there are a lot of third-party emergents that are coming in out of country. My company, founded in Berlin, based on microservices. So there are a lot of different unbanked entities and institutions and people. And so we built platforms based on that. And we built the platform based on that to allow folks to do things differently. Our mission, my mission has always been in fintech for the last 20 some odd years, is to bring something that's net new from a technology perspective to me, my children, my children's children, their children's children, to give them a better experience in banking. So I'll pause there and I'll give you a quick story. So about, I don't know, a year ago, I'm talking to a gentleman out of Southeast Georgia. And he says, Joanna, I just want you to know for the first time in my future, and by the way, I've been in banking for 50 years. I've started and sold many, many banks, community banks throughout the Southeast part of the United States. For the first time in my future, I really feel like I can build an institution based on what my customers' needs are and not based on technology. And I said, George, I said, what are you talking about here? And he said, look, he said, I can't take what somebody's giving me as a monolith and be able to plug it in and do different and unique things. My constituency needs something different. They need cross-border payments. They need e-wallets. We're in COVID. They need accessibility to their accounts and the ability to open transactions and do unique types of buy now, pay later schemes and those types of things. And I can't offer that to them on a standardized monolithic Gen 1, Gen 2 platform, right? And so that's the difference between Generation 1, Generation 2, and where we are today, where we have all this new technology that really gets us to the next level. So to give you a couple more use cases. So you even, when you talk about Gen 3, what are the possibilities for a financial institution, for a fintech, for any of those guys? So, you've always got the rip and replace. I got Hogan in here. It's been in here forever, right? And it runs, it hums. It might be old and on COBOL, but it runs and it makes amazing things happen, right? But this particular segment of my portfolio, maybe I need to do something differently with that, because now I need to offer different types of deposits, different types of loans, different types of currencies, right? That I didn't have to offer before, but now to stay competitive, I need to. So maybe there's a parallel track there with alongside something like a Hogan, or, pick your core, right? Then you've got the hollowed out core. You've got the institution that says, you know what? I've got 7 different core banking platforms, or I have 2 different core banking platforms, depending on your business needs, right? If I'm a high-end, syndicated lending type component versus a retail versus a small business, right? And maybe you have 2 or 3 different cores. How do you figure out what portfolio components you can put on a different platform to run alongside that to help you get better? And then, if you think about a speedboat approach, you look at the N26s and the new 10s and these banks that they can't move. We saw this with PPP loans when COVID hit. They needed the ability to create new types of transactions and products that were specific to either regs or specific to different segments of the market. And they couldn't act quick enough because of the Gen 1 and Gen 2. So for them, they needed a speedboat approach to be able to get there quicker. So launching in 3 to 6 months versus 3 to 6 years versus a rip and replace type environment. Those are the types of things that we're seeing today in North America, but I'll be honest, globally, all across the world. And folks are trying to figure out how we leapfrog to the next level. What are we going to do as it relates to cannabis? What are we going to do as it relates to crypto assets, cryptocurrencies? Is this a mainstay or not? If it is, how are you prepared for it? Do you have the next gen technology that's going to give you that next level of leapfrog? How are you going to contend with, new client bases that you haven't had before? How are you going to deal with buy now, pay later scenarios that your customers are asking you for? How can you be more customer focused? And that's where we see a lot of our customers, which are A, fintechs, B, banks. One of the first crypto banks, the first crypto bank in the US is a Mambu customer. They needed us because they needed the ability to be able to transact within the long digits associated with the cryptocurrency side of the business. You know, what do you want to do if you want to be a financial institution, a bank, or what have you, that wants to work maybe as a sponsor bank with other fintechs? How can you make yourself extensible, like what Scott was saying earlier with Evolve? Those types of things need technology. He built an API layer on top. He built subledgers on the side. But, you know, how are you as an organization going to make that happen? And what does that really mean for the customer, right? If we go back to that initial story I told you about George over on the Southeast Coast, for him, it's all about building something around that customer centricity. And I can tell you, sitting in Dallas and looking at the Bank of America line that was wrapped around 3 square, areas and blocking off 2 lanes of traffic in a 3-lane road, just to try and go through a teller ATM to try and transact business. Where is the future, and what is the future lie? And is it going to be waiting in line in a teller line, or is it going to be, you know, hey, how can we do this via Venmo, Zelle, etc., and making that all part of what we do tomorrow? So leaving you with 3 thoughts, and I told you I'd be brief. So leaving you with 3 thoughts. So, you know, the first one is, you know, and Scott said this before, pick the right partners, right? Pick the partners that work best for you. Pick the partners that have already been vetted by others. I can tell you, we work today with a numerous amount of A, fintechs, B, fintechs who are trying to become a bank, and C, sponsor banks, and D, a lot of partners like Currency Cloud and the NYPAY team here, working with them to try and figure out what is the art of the possible for them, right? And how many weeds can we knock down to make that happen? So pick the right partners there, the folks with the best technology, the best team. We've grown in the last 1.5 years from 2 people to now almost 55 people in the North American market. And that's a massive investment. And I have probably another 50 to add very quickly. But the second thing is, think ahead. What's next? So now we know crypto assets are big. And we know we've got to figure out how that works within our organizations. You know, we have advisors on our team that have worked through that with others. You know, what's next? What the telcos? I mean, you think about Western Union and Walmart. What's happened there? What's going to happen next? And how do we think forward and create a platform that's going to allow us to move forward and leap forward? And the third thing is, why am I here, right? What's the purpose of this, right? And today I felt like, and with, I couldn't hear what you said. Ooh, with my Apple Watch telling me she couldn't hear what I said. I feel like, and with the conversations we've had, that everybody's really inquiring to figure out what we can do. How can we make the art of the possible happen? And but think about why you're here. What's important to you? And those are the key 3 takeaways for me as you think about core platforms, and how you think forward to the future, right? And so with that, I'll turn it over. I won't get cut off, but I'll turn it over to you, Chris, to kind of continue the next phase of the program.
Yeah, amazing stuff. Love your energy as well. It's I think the way we traditionally treat the term cores, I just think, you know, Mambu's just smashed that, and you know, it's created the new wave, and we're you know, excited to see how you guys grow as well. We didn't get many questions. I think we got one in, and Scott took the reins and answered that one, you know, directly. So makes my job much easier then to navigate. So feel free to add any in as we wrap up. But I think I'm going to kick it back over to Ron to close out the event from this point. So thanks, everyone.
Thank you. This has been a great session. You know, I kind of call it a tastings menu. We've had some really great experts in 3 different areas providing their perspectives on those 3 different areas that you guys wanted to hear about. And we got a very short overview of it, but I'd like to tell you that there'll be more coming. First of all, Chris, thank you for your role in this and being the MC of the event. Joanna, Mark, and Scott, thanks, guys. You've been special. Great people to work with. And to our attendees, we want to thank you guys for attending the session. We're going to be sending out a short survey to you guys to get feedback on your interest for this event. Again, this was a test to see if a new format might work well and try different things. We expect to take each of these 3 hot topics, folks, and expand them each into full hour sessions and invite the folks that spoke on these 3 topics to play some role, either moderating or as a panel member for a full hour session on each of these topics later. And finally, if any of you have any questions or comments or thoughts, ideas for sessions, etc., please pass them along to Chris or to me. If you want to get more involved in NYPAY, we welcome volunteers because we're all volunteers. This is a not-for-profit association. No, none of us gets paid for this. We welcome everybody to roll up their sleeves and play a role. If not Chris or me, please reach out to any of our board members that are on the call now. I think Deb is on the call, Deb Baxley, Brian Bunkowski might still be on the call, as well as David True. Thank you, David, for showing up on the video. And if you have any questions or comments, feel free to email me at Ronald, RONALD, .Mazurski, MAZURSKY, at NYPAY.org, NYPAY.org. We wish to thank Davis Wright and Tremaine, who is our sponsor for this session, as well as our sponsor throughout the year. Thank you for your support. Again, thank you all for coming.
Hey, Ron, quick question.
Sure.
If we're on a tasting menu, can I choose? I would go foie gras with a nice Cabernet. So
I think next time we should figure out how to do that.
Good
There you
choice.
go. Very good. Joanna, thanks again. Scott, be good. And Mark.
Thanks,
again,
Chris
thank
and
you.
Mark and everyone for putting this together.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, Ron.
Thanks, everybody.
have a blessed day.
Bye, guys. Thank you,
Bye.
everybody.
Bye-bye, guys.